My name is Adonesian Oshola, and I'm a graduate student here at CSU. I've known Steve since 2009. And I would just want to say that if Steve were to be a country, he would actually be the country of Uganda. And I will explain. Uganda is a small country, but Lake Victoria, which is actually found in Uganda, is one of the biggest, if anything, maybe the second biggest freshwater lake in the world. And you know what fresh water does? It doesn't need any further desalination in order to maybe get fresh water for drinking. It supplies so many countries downstream from Uganda, Sudan, down to Egypt. So Steve has such a big art, just like Lake Victoria occupies a central place in the lives of so many countries within the East African region. And having heard that so many people who have said very nice things about Steve, I haven't known the man, Steve himself, for a long time, but I've known him through so many things that people have said to be able to know that this is a great man with a great heart. It's such a big heart that you can't put your hands around and actually embrace it. So, Steve, we shall miss you, but I know that your legacy will stay on even when you are long gone. And you see there's so many people here are here. I have no other words to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I also heard there's pretty big fish in Lake Victoria, Steve, so you might want to go and check it out. Catch some of them. Hello, Alice.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to pay tribute to Dr. Stephen Withrow. He is my colleague in chronological oncophilia. We are oncophiles. We really love cancer so much that we want to stop it. We'd like to, maybe not have a job in the next 10 years. Wouldn't that be great? But what I wanted to do is just let you know how important Steve Withrow is from what we look at in California. I went to UC Davis and took the first mock clinical residency in oncology from our great forefather in oncology, Dr. Gordon Thielen, who wrote the first textbook that inspired all of us, and I'm sure Steve. And what Gordon used to say about Steve was that he is just going to be a racehorse that's going to win and win and win. And what happened was when Gordon had his 80th birthday celebration at UC Davis, we actually started an award for the Veterinary Cancer Society. And the first recipient was our dear colleague, departed, Dr. Greg McEwen. And then we had to choose the second recipient, and this was Dr. Steve Withrow. There was a picture of him receiving that award at the Veterinary Cancer Society 2 years ago, right? And what I wanted to say is that Steve has really taken a huge, huge chunk of mystery out of cancer because of his inquisitive mind. And that is something that he has instilled in all of his residents and fellows and interns and into all of his colleagues. The clinical research that goes on, there's a lot of us in clinical practice that will always be looking at tumors and wondering why, what can we do? And I thank Steve Withrow for giving a lot of credit to doctors that are practicing oncology out there in the field to have them continue to contribute cases to clinical trials. That is really huge, and we're really indebted to you. Thank you, Steve.
John Woodall, I'm in the administrative side of the hospital, and we don't always remember that a lot of this going on went on with the hospital over there. How many people know what the number 38 means? Does that ring a bell with anybody? Anybody jump up and down and say, oh, 38? He doesn't even do it. 38 is the cost center code for the oncology department in the billing system of the veterinary teaching hospital. And I, on occasion, had to deal with this gentleman to see to it that we could make all of this worked together with our new efforts to computerize things, as we said it, in the early to mid-90s. And I've heard you disparage his technological area or technological expertise in information science, and I was there for the major breakthrough in his technological growth. One morning, as he was chasing around doing what he did with that monstrous office he had, he came around the corner to my office, well, several of our offices, which did not have windows, by the way, and he came up and he tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked up, and he looked down at me over those glasses and gave me one of these. And he led me off to his office, and he pointed to whatever computing device we had sitting on his desk at that time, and he needed some help at something. So I said, well, I'll try. This is one of the guys. If you convince him, everybody will buy it. So I went in there, and I helped him, and I got him going with whatever it was, and it was somewhere we had just gotten using PCs as well as other things, and I let him go, and I thought, well, maybe this will be good. So I went back to work, and I went back 2 hours later, and I walked in, and I said, Dr. Withrow, how's it going? And he said, great. I said, what have you done? He said, I just got done calling my wife to tell her I bought a pair of pants. What a breakthrough. And what a man. Steve, great to know you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to come up? All right, I just want to say 38 is my eternal age, by the way.
My name is Denise DeVecca. I'm here with my husband, and I'm a little nervous to be up here. I've only known Dr. Withrow since, I think it was January 19th. We brought our dog Hayduk up here. He had a big tumor on his back. And I hadn't met Dr. Withrow. I met a couple of other doctors before. We brought him up for the surgery, and I had no idea who it was that was doing the surgery. And Erin told me that, well, she asked me if I knew who he was, and I said no. And she said, well, he's kind of like the very best oncological veterinarian surgeon in the world. And I was like, well, cool, because, you know, I kind of need somebody like that. And anyway, we'd been here before a few years ago for another dog that had cancer who got treated with radiation, and he lived a really long life. But Hayduk wasn't that lucky. And by the time we got up here the afternoon of his surgery, he'd already had, I think, 3 or 4 blood transfusions, and he couldn't keep the blood in his body. So we stayed with him, and the whole team of doctors and nurses and Dr. Withrow tried to save him for almost another whole day and a half. We were up here for a couple of days, and it was the worst 2 days I've ever had, except for Dr. Withrow. You were the most compassionate person I've ever met in my life. The first minute I met you in the lobby of the hospital after you'd already done the surgery, I instantly liked you a lot. I just thought you had this amazing way about you that was very soothing, and it was genuine, and it was real, and it was, you were taking the time to take care of my animal. And we lost Hayduk on Friday evening, and we went into the room where he was, and the thing that I think stunned me the most was that there were about 8 or 9 other people in there, and we weren't the only ones that were crying. Anyway, I just want to thank you for being a part of our life, because you changed our lives just by knowing you for 2 days. And I'm sad that you're retiring, but I'm glad that you're not totally retiring. But then again, I hope I don't really ever have to see you again.
Thank you so much, Denise. So I don't think there's a better way to end this roast with such a wonderful story. Maureen, did you want to say something more? one more. How much time do we have left? Two more. Two with Linda. Okay. So thanks, Denise, for standing up here. I know it's really difficult. So fantastic story. So all right. Then we have three more. We have Maureen. Oh, four more. Oh, they're multiplying here. Okay, we have four more, and that's it. So we have four more, and Maureen is starting, and she has such a lovely accent.
Thank you. I was the second Australian to be a fellow at CSU with Steve, and he took Australians on when perhaps the other veterinary schools quite didn't know where Australia still was. And when I arrived in Colorado, it was amazing. There was this distinct aura in the hospital where all the other residents were, this is a common Australian expression, don't be offended, were scared shitless of Withrow. And so, you know, they were all worried about upsetting him, or you had to, you know, do everything for him. And nobody ever wanted to disappoint him. And that was true. And there were many things he taught me. And the one that sticks out most in my mind is when I came to Colorado, I never drank black spirits. In fact, I never drank any straight spirits. And on a Friday afternoon after a heavy week, we'd sit in Steve's room and I would have to sip Jack Daniels. And I had to make out I enjoyed it for 12 months. But he did teach me that I could drink it, and we had a lot of good conversations. And I can also say I'm one of maybe the few people who taught Steve Withrow something. And when I was there, first of all, as a visitor, he was under the impression that you could not treat rectal tumours in dogs with a procedure called a rectal pull-through. So one came in and I said to Steve, you can cut that out. And he said, do you want to have a go? And I thought, well, all right, I bet I can't be shown up. So we did this rectal pull-through, and I remember turning around, and standing behind me was every surgeon that was ever at Colorado to see this Australian do a rectal pull-through. And I thought, oh my God, our reputation's on the line. But we got the tumour out, the dog did pretty well, and he was convinced from there on and called me the Rear Admiral. So my present to Steve is to Steve and Sue, and it's a $20 Australian note, and that means you've got to come and spend it.
Yeehaw. Good story. We all come down under, spend it with him. That's great. All right, Julius.
Thank you. So I was the third Australian fellow, and the stories continue.
Okay, this is the last one, I promise.
I have a couple of stories that I can tell at least, I think. One of the first ones was an early lesson in cancer biology. I had transitioned with an English fellow named Duncan Lascelles, who's unfortunately not here today. And we had just taken out this kidney tumour, and Withrow takes part of it home and turns up the next day in rounds with a kidney tumour pie and challenges any of us to eat it. And Duncan and myself, being the silly fellows, non-American fellows, do so, and just a proof in principle that, you know, cancer is not transmissible and it's all kind of safe. But I'm not sure whether it was actually a kidney tumour in there or not. I didn't think so. The second one is each fellow passes on stories to basically control Withrow, make sure that he does not get out of hand. And we've always had a lot of trouble dealing with urethral tumours. And he turns up one day in rounds with a rifle cleaner, this big wire brush that he wants to basically ram up the urethra and ream it out. And so I think it was Sue and Bill and myself were all entrusted to control Withrow and say, no, we shouldn't do this, but we should look into an alternative. And through Withrow's forethought, you know, he always thinks out of the box, and that's a fantastic thing for us to do. Although the wire brush wasn't perhaps the best idea, but it did lead us on to other ideas from that, and that was very innovative. So on a familiar note with everyone else here, Steve's compassion, his leadership have all been examples for all of us to take on with us wherever we go. And one of the things with the fellowship program is that he did not want it to be just an American thing. He wanted this message to go out everywhere throughout the world. And when you see the fellows coming from England, from Australia, from Europe, and from America, and we're all spreading out and spreading that message, doing that translational research, doing what he wants to do, and spread that message around. And hopefully we'll continue that for many, many years to come.